Hi guys. How are you guys? Can you guys hear me?
Your audio is good.
Okay, thank you. My computer is so slow. Mm. Hi guys, sorry about that. My laptop is so slow. I have like a MacBook and it's like running on its last leg. But yeah, we should be getting started like literally right now. Mm. So the agenda for today is just like an introduction, just opening remarks. And the title for today and what we're basically talking about is My Crown, Loving and Caring for Textured Hair, presented by Rochelle Smith. And questions and answers, you guys can ask questions later and I'll give you answers. And Rochelle will hopefully give answers too. Next slide, please. We are honored to speak with you today on traditional and treaty territory of Mississaugas. As a person of African descent, I acknowledge that my ancestors did not arrive on Turtle Island by choice, yet I also recognize my responsibility as a settler to acknowledge ongoing harms of colonization and to stand in solidarity with my Indigenous brothers and sisters. Through advocacy, respect, and action, we acknowledge we acknowledge that the land on which we gather is situated within traditional treaty territory of Mississaugas, specifically the Mississaugas Islands of Scugog. As a person of African ancestry, I honor my ancestors whose resilience and creativity and spirit continue to guide us today. My lineage is rooted in history of displacement, survival, and triumph. A story shaped by both forced immigration of both the of sorry guys, of African peoples, the enduring power of our cultures, languages, and wisdom. I acknowledge that my presence on these lands are tied to complex history colonialism that has harmed both indigenous and African peoples, which journeys to these lands were different. Our struggles for freedom, dignity, and belonging are deeply rooted. So yeah, guys, it's basically our history. It goes back a while, and I think that it's good that we have, systems that help us, and we kind of are like having things to fight back against the oppression that have has been oppressing us for a very long time. Next slide. Before we begin our webinar series today, I would like to share with you information about who we are. The Conjenga Family Wellness Project is a community based on an initiative dedicated to strengthening Black families through culturally grounded, holistic, and healing-centered approaches rooted in Afrocentric principles and community care. They the project provides education, wellness programming, and support services that affirm identity, nature, nurture culture, relationships, promote mental and emotional, spiritual well-being. Some of our upcoming initiatives include women's support groups led by our newest therapists, Jana and Cheryl. We also host bi-weekly parenting webinars like the one you're attending today, covering a range of topics such as family attachment, play, play and storytelling in parenting, and financial literacy, and much more. In November, we're hosting an elder circle to celebrate and showcase our upcoming documentary on elder crits and stories, a powerful reflection on wisdom and legacy. Next slide. In planning our events and facilitating groups, our advocacy and outreach with families, children, and youth are grounded in core principles of healing, empowerment, and community care. As I mentioned earlier, we recognize the lasting impacts of colonization, racism, and oppression on the people of African Black ancestry. In response, we have developed a curriculum that intentionally addresses racial traumatic stress while nurturing connection and community and resilience. Our programs support families and help them get back on their feet and help them get the tools that they need to succeed. Next slide. Thank you. A few housekeeping items. This webinar style presentation, your mic and video are disabled. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. We can manually enable your mic and your video. If you prefer, you can also use the chat feature to share your thoughts. Since we can't see you, please share your reactions and engage with our community and engage with Rochelle so she can feel like she's welcomed and, just more to foster community. Next slide. We are honored to host Rochelle Smith today as a guest facilitator. Rochelle Smith is an apprentice hairstyle at Curl Lounge and a co-founder of Beauty Braids and Beyond. She is passionate about more than just hair care. She empowers women and inspires young entrepreneurs to embrace their gifts with confidence. With expertise in natural hair and commitment to uplifting the hair community, her community and the hair community. Rochelle creates spaces where people can feel encouraged to celebrate their crowns and practice self-love and grow into their best versions of themselves. Thank you, Rochelle. That's actually perfect. Our community needs more of that. So I'm glad that you are here to talk about that today.
Thank you so much for having me. Okay. Can I share my screen? I can share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. Perfect. If you do have any questions and I'm unable to see you, um, just unmute. Naraya, please feel free to unmute or interject at any point. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the lovely introduction. My name's Rochelle, and today we're going to be talking about hair care and textured hair, how to care for your hair, the importance of embracing your natural hair, and as well as helpful tips and tricks on how to care for your hair and as well as your children's hair. Um, Naraya gave a little bit of background about me. I co-founded an online beauty supply store where we ship all across the world, and our mission is really to use education and innovation to provide our customers with the tools and support they need to care for their hair. And I started as an apprentice hairstylist at the Curl Lounge, aiming to specialize in curly hair care. So if you ever want to get a consultation or come and visit me, I would love to see you guys. So let's get straight into it. Um, let's go to your crown. So your hair is your crown. It's a thing you rock with pride every day. It is history, it provides creativity, and it is also an opportunity to showcase your own individuality. So when we speak of history, it reflects your identity, your heritage. It tells a story of your culture as well, how you style it, how you wear it, its thickness, how it presents itself. That is your history. So it's important to rock that with pride. Um, Creativity, there's so many different hairstyles that we're allowed or not allowed, but that we can wear. And that shows our own, that leads me to the next point, which showcases our own individuality. It's our vibe. If we want to wear it straight one day or curly or in a big fro, if we want to experiment with color, that allows you to, your hair allows you to express yourself in so many ways without even having to open your mouth. So I have this quote from Simone Biles, and it says, "Practice creates confidence, and confidence empowers you." And while this applies to everything else in your life, I also wanted to include it because it's a good reference for your hair. A lot of the times we don't know how to care for it, and that doesn't make us feel the most confident in wearing it. So the more you practice how to care for it, the more confident you feel in wearing it, and it is so empowering. I'll tell you a little bit about a little story about me. I've always like loved and cared for my natural hair. That was one of the reasons I started my online beauty supply store. But it wasn't until I actually started working as a hairstylist and working on natural hair that it gave me a whole new perspective on the beauty of textured hair, which made me even feel more empowered and confident to wear it out naturally and curly. And that came with practice. And the more I practiced, the more confident I became in wearing my hair in whatever state I pleased. So we're going to go into hair porosity. We're going to start the education. Hair porosity is super important. A lot of the times we focus on different curl types and hair patterns, but sometimes it's more important to focus on the porosity because the porosity will actually determine what products will work best for you. So low porosity is usually when your hair cuticles, so each of these that you see on the screen, they're all individual strands. And those hair cuticles, they are sealed shut, making it really hard for product to absorb. But once product does absorb, your hair retains it well. And it does take a long time to dry your hair. So if you notice that your hair takes a really long time to dry, that's a sign you could have low porosity hair. Medium porosity hair, it sits in the middle. I'll get to that after. We'll go to high porosity hair. High porosity hair is when the hair shaft, the shafts are open. Like you can see here, it's kind of like a pine cone. Imagine a pine cone and its ridges kind of opened up like this. So what happens is product is easily entered into the hair shaft, but as quickly as it goes in, water, product, anything is as quickly as it goes out. So you'll notice sometimes you might go in the shower, and the minute you get out of the shower, your hair is like already dry. That's a sign you may have high porosity hair. And you can notice this as well. Sometimes you'll put in a lot of product, but it can still feel dry. So your hair sometimes is just like shrinking up all that water. And then medium porosity is sometimes is right in the middle. So you have good moisture retention rate, doesn't take as long to get wet and also doesn't take as long to dry. And your products that you're using in water as well, it absorbs the product well. There's different ways that you can test your hair's porosity. If you take an individual strand of hair, let's see if I can get a strand. If you just take like you can't even see, but if you take an individual strand of hair and you rub your hand along it, if it feels really bumpy, that could be a sign you have high porosity hair. If it feels really smooth, that could be a sign you have low porosity hair. Another way to test it, which I'm going to ask you guys to do right now, is if you can run and grab a glass of water. I'll give you like a minute, and then we're going to test your hair porosity. So I'll give you guys a minute to do that. But basically, what you can do is you're going to grab a glass of water, just pull out one of your hair strands. Please be mindful if you do have products on your hair right now that could impact the test. But what you're going to do is you're just going to drop that individual hair strand in the water. If that strand sinks to the bottom, that means you have high porosity hair. If it floats at the top, it means you have low porosity. If you're not sure what it's doing, it looks like it's floating to the top, but it might be sinking. That means you have medium porosity hair. So I'm going to give you guys like a minute to do that. I see there's a chat. I don't know if someone's saying anything. Let's see. Okay, Solana's getting a glass. And Solana, I'll also have all the details for everything at the end. So I think everyone, if you haven't received your got your glass yet, you can grab it, but just take that strand out. If you can, maybe give it a good wipe with your shirt to try and remove any of the product that's on there if you have any, and then drop it in there. You can comment in the chat what happened to that strand of hair when you dropped it in the water, and I'm going to continue. All right, so remember before I mentioned you want to get products for your porosity. So I'm going to focus mainly on styling products right now and hydrating products. If you have low porosity hair, you want to use lighter products to avoid product buildup. So that comes in the form of more sprays. You're going to focus on products that have like glycerin, hyaluronic acid, smaller molecules that can easily penetrate the hair shaft and also help you keep and retain moisture in your hair. If you're going to be using creams, you want lighter creams. You really want them when you're rubbing them in your hand, you don't want them to feel too oily. You want them to feel really light. When you're using, if you have high porosity hair, you want to focus on those thicker leave-ins, those heavier leave-ins. One, they'll be able to deliver moisture better to your hair, and it'll also help with you retaining that moisture in your hair. Another key for high porosity hair is applying those products while your hair is wet. Honey is a good ingredient. I really love, for me personally, I love products with honey in it because it helps my high porosity hair receive and retain the most moisture. And, we live in Canada, so it gets brutally cold. What you can do is use that after applying your moisturizers, use a light oil to seal it in. Let's see what we have in the chat. So Naraya has low porosity, Jessica, medium porosity, Solana, low porosity, Viva, I hope I pronounced that right, medium porosity, amazing. I love that. Let's see, let's go back. Go back here. Let's see. Okay, so those are how you want to navigate high porosity. And different things can impact your porosity level. So the environment can impact your porosity level. If you colored your hair, it can impact your porosity level. Um, if you if you straighten your hair a lot, that can also impact, or use heat styling a lot, that can also impact your porosity level. What I've learned is that as you get on the scale of high porosity, that typically is just due to more damage happening to your hair. And sometimes it's just natural. Like I said, the environment, how you sleep sometimes, maybe like there's so many different factors that can impact your porosity. If anyone has ever done the big chop, they may have had high porosity before, but the minute that they cut all their hair off and it starts to grow out, because they haven't been putting heat on it, because it's like a fresh new batch of hair, it's low porosity. And then over time, it ends up becoming high porosity. Another thing is our ends tend to be more porous, just because those are the older, and sometimes they're brushing on your shirts and your collars. You'll notice the ends might be a little bit higher in porosity than like the root of the hair. So sometimes people use different combinations of products that they have in their hair. So they'll use the light sprays and like creams, but then they'll only oil their ends to seal the moisture in on their ends. And that's really good, especially for those with high porosity, again, being more prone to breakage, um, just to keep the ends sealed and preventing moisture from escaping the hair and being more prone to breakage. Another thing that you'll notice with high porosity hair, I'm just going to go back. You'll notice you get a lot of tangles. You might not experience that if you have medium to low porosity hair, but those pine cones, that pine cone looking hair, everything's open. The hair's rubbing against each other. So you'll notice more tangles in the hair sometimes, especially if you have finer hair. It could be harder to detangle. Okay. So we're going to go into the different hair types, just so you can get an idea of what your hair type is. Again, I personally like to look at hair based on its porosity and its curl pattern versus the hair typing system, the traditional Andre Walker hair typing system. Just because, and you guys might notice this with yourselves as well. Your hair can have different patterns on your one head. Sometimes in one curl, it could be looser at the root and then coil up at the end. So this is just like a good baseline, but really focus on the porosity of your hair. So you have type 1 hair, typically more straight. We have type 2 hair. Um, Again, these are the more like the traditional Andre Walker hair typing system, where you can see it's more wavy, and then by the time you get to the 2C, it becomes a bit more curly. And then for the majority of women with color textured hair, we see a lot of 3 to type 4 hair patterns. So with the type 3A, you'll notice more ringlets. When you get to the type B, it becomes a bit more coily. And then type C, this is the type 3C, gets a lot more coily. But another thing that I want to, well, we'll actually notice this when you get into the type 4 hair pattern. Again, remember I mentioned looking at the curl pattern instead of like the curl type, because curls can be round, they can be S's. You can notice with some folks that have 3C hair, if you look in the 3C, if you look at the top of her head, that first curl by her eyebrow, it looks like an S. And then it's only at the end that it gets into an actual ringlet. So a lot of individuals that have like 3B, 3C, 4A hair, that curl pattern sometimes looks like an S opposed to looking like a perfect ringlet. I think I've seen some questions. Let's see. No, that was just Naraya. Thank you, Naraya, for adding the link in there. Um, and then 4 type hair. So another misconception about type 4 hair, and women who have type 4 hair, a lot of the times they think they'll have 4C hair, which is actually a really rare type 4 hair. Most common, most common curl pattern is 4B, 4A. A lot of the times people will think they have 4C hair, but that's because their hair isn't hydrated and it hasn't been defined. So they don't see that definition. And sometimes you might not get that spiral definition. You'll get more of like a, with the type 4C hair, 4C, you'll get more of like a zigzag type definition. But again, that's why I always go back to the curl pattern. Someone can have low porosity 4A hair and they'll use products that are typically lighter and it'll work really well for them because their hair just might be a little bit more silky. The hair shaft is just smoother versus someone who may have 4C hair, they could have the bigger curls, but they might have 3C hair, they might have the bigger curls, but their hair might be high porosity. So people will say, oh, like I'm going to use products, like these products aren't for me, they're for the type 3 girlies, when it could actually, in fact, work for them. It just depends on your porosity. So we're going to get into some hair myths. Some of these might be a little bit controversial, but we'll get into the details of them all. So braids being a protective style, braids can actually be more damaging to your hair, especially depending on how you care for them before, during, and after styling. So sometimes you can go to a braider and she will braid really tight, and that could end up resulting in damage to the hair follicle, leading to traction alopecia, balding, hair recession, thinning. If they're using the gels to seal the hair, I know we love that sleek look when we're putting the braids in, but if they're putting a gel right at your scalp, how is moisture supposed to enter your hair, even while it is in that protective style? During while you have the braids in, sometimes we'll keep them in for 2 months, maybe 3 months. I'm guilty of this. I used to keep braids in for 3 months once upon a time. And I would wash it in between, but a lot of the time some women don't wash their hair in between when they have braids. That can also be damaging because your hair is just accumulating a lot of buildup. And then after, when you're taking the braids out, one thing I will say, you see a lot of hair come out when you're braiding, but typically our hair is always shedding. So if it's trapped in the braids, you're going to notice all that hair that should have shed come out while you're taking the braids out. So sometimes it's not always breakage. But there's other times when you're pulling it out and your hair's dry and you're manipulating it while it's dry, that can be damaging. You should never really manipulate your hair in its dry state because that can lead to breakage. Oils moisturize your hair is the second myth. Oils do not moisturize your hair. They actually can block moisture from entering your hair, which can result in dryness. So if you, like we know, oil and water, they don't mix. So if I put oil on top of my hair first, how is water, which is the key source of moisture, supposed to get into your hair? You can't do it. You shouldn't wash your hair every week. So this can change during the seasons. I know in winter, again, because it is colder outside, your hair can be more prone to breakage and become more brittle as a result of the cold air. But in the summer months, I definitely encourage individuals to be washing their hair every week because when you wash your hair, not only does it become easier to manage, but you are giving your hair the best source of moisture, which is water. And it's getting that routinely every week. You're going to notice your hair actually becomes softer and more easy to manage. Um, what was I going to say? Alternatively, you could just wash it when it feels dry. So some people wash it 2 times a week. You can wash it when it feels dry as opposed to waiting for the entire week. And you're like, oh, I can't do anything with this right now. I don't want to add more product. Just wash your hair. It'll be better for you and it'll be easier for you to manage. Um, Good hair and bad hair exists. So if you have kids, this is something that I preach and will never stop harping about. There is no such thing as good hair or bad hair, especially when it comes to the Caribbean communities. They'll look at the softer, looser textures as having good hair, and maybe the coarser textures as having bad hair. The only kind of hair that exists is healthy hair. Healthy hair is good hair. Excuse the typo. That is the only type of good hair. And I won't even crucify anyone for having bad hair, which I will consider unhealthy hair because sometimes they just don't know how to take care of it. And that's why sessions like these are important. So you can learn how to care for it and have healthy hair. Textured hair can't grow long, which is another myth. Textured hair can grow long. We've seen the girls who are wearing their wigs and then they take the wigs off and they have hair just as long as their wigs, the black girls that have the hair just as long as their wigs. Textured hair, coarser hair, it can grow long, but you have to give it that care and that intentionality and being consistent with your routine. Textured hair is strong, is the sixth myth. I would say textured hair is resilient in that it can bounce back, but it is not strong in the traditional sense on a molecular level because every single coil at every point that it turns, that is a weak spot in the hair, making it more easily prone to breakage. And that is where we get into seeing that lack of length retention and growth because those weaker spots, especially at the ends and especially if they're more porous, they're just the friction will cause it to break really easily. Another myth that, and feel free to ask me questions at any point. If I'm not seeing them, Naraya, please let me know. White hair products don't work for black hair. So a lot of stereotypically white brands like the Pantene, the L'Oreal, the Redken hair brands, Aussie. I know some I've used Aussie before, but Aussie, a lot of the times people are like, that's not for me. I'm gonna stick with the Shea Moisture, I'm gonna stick with the Miels. Those are curated for me. That is actually false. So a lot of white brands have a lot of researched backed formulations that work on your hair at the molecular level, which is good for all hair types. So your hair is in need, if your hair is in need of repair, you're going to want to look for the products that typically have had millions of dollars backed behind their research to care for the hair on an actual molecular level that are going to help your hair and actually make it grow and actually make it healthy. When we come to hair styling, we'll get into that in the next few slides. That's where we see that the white hair products don't work for black hair, just because sometimes we need something a little bit thicker and heavier, whereas individuals with the looser or the straight hair don't need. And that's why I would say we say the white hair products don't work for black hair. But if we're looking at our shampoos and our conditioners, which again, in my opinion, and what I have learned are the most important part of your hair care routine, it's okay to try the white brands. And now there's been a lot of them that have been coming out with lines dedicated to curly hair, which focus more on moisture and moisture retention. You might actually see a difference in the manageability of your hair. And then the last fact is certain products make your hair grow faster. Another myth that we need to dispel this one right here. Okay. Your hair is going to grow no matter what. It's going to grow no matter what. Nothing can make it grow faster. We also have seasons where our hair is growing and seasons where our hair is stagnant. And maybe you've observed that yourself. I know I observed it myself. Typically, right now, between um, like August to January is when I notice my hair's growth period. And then for the rest of the year, between like February and the summer months, my hair usually is stagnant and then it'll grow. And we have like different hair growth phases. So what's really happening when people think that certain products make your hair grow faster, because you want to see your hair growing faster, you psychologically end up getting into a routine. And that routine of caring for your hair on a consistent basis with products that are helping your hair, you're seeing the length retention. You're not seeing it grow faster. You're seeing the length retention. And that's really what you want to focus on if you want to see your hair grow long. It's focusing on the ends and making sure that those are in tip-top condition because your hair is going to grow and you're not going to see that reflected if these ends consistently break off. So that means getting your trims. That means understanding your porosity. If you do have like porous hair, you want to make sure that your ends are sealed so that the moisture isn't breaking away. Or you want to make sure that you have it in a protective style, which can be twists to help keep it retained. For me, again, you have to figure out what works for you and your hair or for your kids' hair as well. Sometimes having it in twists and just braids with their natural hair might be the best way to see the progress in their hair growth. Leaving it out and slicking it back too tight all the time, that can that can result in damage and seeing breakage that you don't want for them, right? So those are the hair myths. I think there were some questions actually I did see or a comment into. Ozzy never failed me. Love that. See? Okay, so we're going to get into hair care. And if you have any questions, again, please feel free to send them to the chat. Sulfate free. Yep, we can get into that. I really like Amika Hydro Rush. They're really, really good and really hydrating. They have a moisture mask that I absolutely love. Another good brand is L'Oreal Curl Expression. When I use that shampoo myself, it's their L'Oreal Professional line. Their shampoo, like my hair, when I get out the shower, even before I use conditioner, because sometimes I'll use like a matte, like a treatment, and my hair feels so moisturized with only the shampoo. And also sometimes sulfates are good. If you are using a lot of product in your hair consistently, you might need like a sulfate to help cleanse your hair. So you'd focus on like a clarifying shampoo, which you'd only use like once or twice a month. Again, that depends on how often you're using or how frequent you're using different products. Heavier products might that, especially if you have heavier oil, curl expression, I'll type it in. L'Oreal curl expression. So if you have a lot of oil and a lot of buildup, you might need a clarifying shampoo, and those usually have sulfates in here just to get your hair to a really clean state so that your hair can actually better absorb products after. So remember before I mentioned hair care and hairstyling. Hair care is focusing on actually keeping your hair healthy and strong versus hairstyling, which is used to make your hair look a certain type of way. So what I want you guys to focus on moving forward is getting products that really focus on the integrity of your hair. And that starts with your shampoo and your conditioner. I would say if you're going to invest in any hair product, you want to invest in your shampoo and your conditioner. So you're going to use products that um, have, if you're noticing a lot of breakage, you might want to focus on products that have bonders in it. And essentially, what bonders do is they repair your hair at the molecular level, not at the surface level. So bonders, their molecules are small enough to enter and penetrate the hair shaft and repair those bonds with key amino acids on the inside. So you can get that with K18, Olaplex, Redken, as well as L'Oreal. I mean, there's a lot of bonding products on the market, but my favorite to date and the ones that I know are most notable are the K18, which I use the mask that Simone is holding back there. I actually use that. I'm in my hair. I use a L'Oreal. They have this product called the Absolute Molecular Repair. I use their leave-in mask, their bonding mask. But you can do your research. And again, if you have questions, I'm happy to give you guys recommendations for that. But you want to use those about 1 to 2 times a month, um, just to help repair any damage that may have happened over the course of your week or your 2 weeks period. And you want to keep a good balance with having a moisturizing shampoo as well. I'm not as picky on the moisturizing shampoos because I feel like the traditional black owned product or products marketed to black women, those ones, there are a lot of moisturizing shampoos on the market. So just alternating between those two, the hair is healthiest when your hair has a good balance of protein and moisture. And then let me actually talk about protein. So TGIN has their Miracle Repair. They have their shampoo line, their shampoo, conditioner, leave-in conditioner. I would say proteins, you want to focus more if you have like bleached hair, because what happens when you lighten your hair or bleach it, we say lighten at the salon, but what happens is you're removing molecules from the hair and it just becomes more fragile. It's so porous. Um, your hair shaft, remember I showed you the pine cone, it's opened up. What protein does, those molecules are bigger than bonding molecules. So while they don't penetrate the hair shaft, they fill in the gaps in the hair shaft and making that and helping to build its strength. So too much of that, too much of anything is never good, but too much bonder or too much protein, that can result in your hair becoming more brittle because you're overloading it with products. So that's why I'm saying it's good to have a good balance between the two, like a hydrating shampoo, moisturizing, nourishing shampoo, and then either a bonding or a protein shampoo. And for me, again, as an example, I really monitor my hair and I see what's happening. If I'm noticing at any point during the week, maybe I left my hair out for too long and I'm noticing breakage, I'm going to immediately opt for one of my bonding shampoos and treatments. And then the next week, if I change my routine up a little bit and I notice I'm not having any breakage, then I'll just stick with my moisturizing shampoo. And then that helps me manage my hair. The minute I see something going wrong, I'll shift my products around or my routine around just a little bit to address the concerns and its needs in that moment. Um, Hairstyling, again, I'm not too picky about hairstyling products. I think there's so many different good styling products on the market. Again, if you have higher porosity hair, you're going to want to focus on things that have a little bit more hold. And another hair care tip for you guys, I was going to get into the tips later, but I'll just give you this now. Um, Apply your hair while it's soaking wet. You'll notice the most definition and you'll also get longer wear and your hair will likely stay hydrated for a longer period of time versus trying to style it while it's semi-dry. Sometimes the styling products, they have molecules in there or formulations that help your hair retain the moisture and prevent it from escaping your hair shaft. Again, that's for the higher porosity girls. Medium, lower porosity, you can get away with less heavier products. And then the last thing I'll talk about actually, we'll get into the next slide because we're going to talk about building the perfect routine. So I just talked about all like the different types of shampoos that you can have. You have clarifying shampoos, detoxing shampoos, moisturizing shampoos, bonding shampoos, strengthening shampoos. We talked about the bonding shampoos. Those are the ones that have the molecules that penetrate and repair your hair at the molecular level. And then you have the strengthening shampoos, which are typically products that have protein in it to help strengthen the hair. Moisturizing shampoos, those are your typical, there's so many on the market, but then clarifying and detoxing. So clarifying shampoos, those are the ones that have the stronger sulfates in them. Those are, you're going to notice sometimes you have a hair, maybe if you haven't noticed this already, you're going to have like maybe a time in your month where your hair just the products aren't working. Like they're just not working and you can't figure out what it is. Before you go and buy new products, try clarifying your hair because sometimes products will leave residual buildup. So even if you use your moisturizing shampoo, remember sometimes moisturizing shampoos they have um, heavier oils in it, and even though you are cleansing your hair, those oils aren't being removed, and that can just impact the products that you're using after to style. That can impact their ability to do their job. Um, so that's why sometimes you just need a clarifying shampoo to give yourself a fresh, clean start. And I would recommend that once a month. You don't need to go above and beyond that. Or if you're going to the salon, they'll do it for you. So if you do have like regular appointments, they'll do it for you. You don't really need to buy it. Um, or twice a week if you're using a lot of products on your hair. For your kids, I'd recommend clarifying once a month if possible. Detoxing shampoos, these are a little bit different than clarifying shampoos. What detoxing shampoos do, they isolate metals, like heavy metals, and remove those from the hair. So if your kids are swimming and they're in the chlorine a lot, or for individuals that live in areas that have a lot of hard water, you're going to want to use the detoxing shampoos because that's going to make your hair, the mineral buildup on your hair isn't going to isn't going to disappear without something that can isolate those metals and wash them out of your hair. After your shampooing, you want to get into a deep conditioner. So again, depending on what you need, that can change. Maybe you need moisture, maybe you need protein, maybe you need bonding. I would say having something that caters to bonding and something that caters to moisture are good things to have in your repertoire of products, just so you can, again, assess your hair's needs and treat it accordingly. And then you want a leave-in. Leave-ins can look different. They can be treatments. I mentioned before the K18 molecular repair leave-in mask. I don't use a conditioner. When I want to use that product, I'll shampoo my hair and then I'll put in that leave-in treatment and then I'll go in with like my moisturizing treatments after. Um, if you have high porosity hair, you're going to want to focus on the low porosity hair, sorry. If you have low porosity hair as the leave-in, you're going to want to focus on the sprays that have conditioner in it. Or if you have a conditioner, you can dilute it with water so it's not weighing down your hair and making it feel too heavy or greasy. If you have higher porosity hair, you're going to want something that's a little bit more viscous, something with a little bit more weight on it so that your hair is retaining the moisture. And then to style your hair, that's when you'll have the hair gels, custards, curl creams, mousse, hairspray, depending on whatever style you're going for that week. That's where we get into the styling. So many different styling products on the market. And then different tools for your hair. So if you wear your hair curly a lot, I recommend getting a diffuser. The worst thing you want to do is go to bed with wet hair because that is when your hair is actually in its most fragile state. So I recommend just getting it dry before going to bed because that friction can cause damage and it could also result in more frizz. We have different products that you can use, being the wide tooth comb if you're detangling your kids' hair. You want to detangle with a wide tooth comb. Don't forget to moisturize. So get a spray bottle, spray the hair over, and then just detangle with the wide tooth comb. You have the Denman brush as well, which is also good. Um, Sorry, this is the Denman brush, which is good to detangle and also style the curls. And then you have silk scrunchies, silk bonnets, silk pillowcases, or satin. Those are good for the hair. They help the hair retain moisture and minimize breakage. So with the scrunchies, I would say using silk scrunchies. I only use silk scrunchies to gather my hair unless I'm doing like a specific style where I'll use like an actual regular elastic. But if I know I'm gathering my hair a lot at any point during the week, I'm always going to opt for a silk scrunchie because there will be less breakage at the gathering point of the hair. So sometimes you'll notice we'll put the hair up in one and you might have a little bit of breakage in the center of your head, or you might notice your hair's a little bit shorter where you tend to gather it tight all the time. That can be a result of those cotton elastics and doing that too frequently. So that's why if you're going to be gathering your hair in a ponytail or your daughter or son's hair in a ponytail, I often just recommend silk scrunchies. There's so many different ones in the market. There's thinner ones. We carry this size, which is more of a medium sized scrunchie on our website. But that's my recommendation, again, just to maintain and optimize the health of your hair. So, tips for your hair. I mentioned weekly washes already, quarterly trims. What happens if you're not trimming your hair? Those split ends will travel up the hair shaft. It'll also make your hair so hard to detangle. You'll notice, like, sometimes if you're combing through your hair, it's easy, and then it gets really hard when it gets to the end. Those are split ends. Cut them off. You'll have an easier time managing your hair. So the recommended time to get that done is quarterly. I get very scissor happy and like to trim my hair every time I wash it. Don't be like me. Get a professional trim. Get a professional trim. They will trim your hair in a way where you're not going to lose too much length, and they will help give you a good consultation on how, again, to navigate your hair journey. For your kids, detangle for your kids and yourself, actually. Detangle when your hair is wet, it's less painful, there will be less breakage, and it's easier. And use satin or silk tools. They'll really help with keeping your hair moisturized and also minimizing the breakage of your hair, especially if you're sleeping with like a cotton pillowcase. Um, without using a bonnet, just use the bonnet if you can, or switch to like a satin or silk pillowcase if you don't want to wear a bonnet. So you can really optimize the results of your hair. And again, not just saying this, like my clients that I speak to and I recommend these same things to them, and they come back to their appointment saying, "Oh wow, like yeah, this has made a total difference in manageability of my hair." So we're going to do a little hair quiz. If you can scan this. At the end of the quiz, you'll notice that there is also a discount code to my website. It'll be this, I think it's the first link, and it says Hair and Now. If the first person to complete it, I can do a little hair consultation if we have time, which we may not. It's almost 8 o'clock, sorry. But I can, for the first person that completes it, you can let me know. I can give you my recommendations just from what I'm seeing on the hair quiz. And if you have any questions at any point, do not hesitate to ask them in the chat if you're not sure about what I'm asking. But I'll keep a lookout for whoever submits first, and then I can give you the details of what I would recommend for your hair. I'll give us about 3 to 5 minutes. And then in the meantime, if you guys do have any questions while you're filling it out, feel free to ask me. But that will conclude my presentation. And thank you so much for the time and for listening to me talk about hair care. And I hope that you found these tips really helpful. And I wish you all the best on your hair journeys and supporting your kids and theirs as well. These sessions are so important, and learning about hair is so important because when it comes to our kids' hair, there's so much already animosity in the world towards Black hair. So when we know how to take care of it and we can feel empowered about caring for our hair, we can inspire and empower others to care for their natural hair as well. Oh, love that. I hope she found it helpful. Apple cider vinegar in a spray bottle used for clarifying. It can. I'm not going to say it can't, but the only reason why I wouldn't recommend it is because Like you're gonna end up washing that out with likely a moisturizing shampoo, which eliminates the purpose of the apple cider vinegar. So I'd say it's just better to get like an actual clarifying shampoo because when you put the apple cider vinegar in, right? Like you can't leave that in your hair. You're gonna wash it out, and chances are, if you don't have a clarifying shampoo, you'll use a moisturizing shampoo. And we don't know if the moisturizing shampoo will be able to fully remove the apple cider vinegar in it. I'd say look for shampoos that have like an apple cider vinegar in it. That could be useful. I'm going to go back to the last slide just in case anyone didn't get a chance to scan. It also has the link to our website and our email and our socials and everything. My pleasure, Solana. Okay, I see one response from Naraya. Let's see.
Do any of you guys have any questions for Rochelle? I'd say use this time like because this is very